Well, hello there, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever part of the world you are in. It is just past midday here on the not so sunny Gold Coast. I have my coffee, no bad days. We're making the most of it. It's flooding. This is probably the worst flooding I've seen in my lifetime. I'm okay. I'm up high in an apartment building, but some of my friends aren't doing so well. So stay safe, everybody. We are up to episode number 51 of Chit Chats with Git Cats, and I have a very special guest here, and Ding Dong, who's at my door, no other than Mr. Larry Mitchell. Hey, Larry.
Hey,
Now, as I mentioned,
nice crowd.
Yeah, rent a crowd. They're all on that side of the camera, apparently. As I mentioned, we're flooding here, but you're in Alabama.
Alabama.
Yeah, how is it there, mate?
Not flooding. Flooding was Tuesday and Wednesday. Well, it wasn't flooding, but we had like serious storms where I'm at right now on Tuesday and Wednesday. Not anywhere near like what you guys are going through in Australia.
Yeah, as we were saying
But
before we started, you were asked to play on the fire benefit, and now we've gone through a pandemic, and now we've got the floods. So
yeah, it's well, literally started last year on this record for fire relief because of all the fires you guys had there, and now it's just the opposite. So.
well, if
Yeah.
anything, it's given me a lot of time to sit at home and play guitar, which isn't such a bad thing.
And did you have this show back before the pandemic?
I'd done a few episodes beforehand, but when the pandemic hit, it was like, you beauty, everybody's at home. Let's send out some emails.
Yeah, so it thrust you into being a a live television producer,
How
and
things
and
change.
host.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. It's a different world these days, isn't it? You know, compared to back in when you could just be a guitar player, and I guess you had to kind of try and look cool back then. But now, you, like you say, you have to be a TV producer and an audio engineer and the whole lot.
Oh, absolutely. Before you just needed to be a guitar player. Well, should have been more than that, but you just need to be a guitar player. Now you have to write. You got to learn how to record your own stuff, mix and produce, and market your own stuff, and then you shoot videos. And now actually be, a lot of people are doing live streams and stuff like that. So performances. So you got to do a lot of things these days.
Absolutely. And I think
Mhm.
people don't realize how much goes into the marketing, self promotion of artists now, which used to be handled by record companies, but that's a
Yep.
thing of the past.
Yes. Yes. You need to do it yourself. You really do.
Absolutely. So, Larry, I generally start the conversation by asking people what started the fascination with the guitar. So, I'm posing you the question, where did it all start, mate?
I wanted to play drums, and my mom threw my drum set out the window. I had a toy kit, and I was playing, and she wanted to watch TV, and didn't work. Didn't She said, "Don't hit the drums," and I said, "Okay." And then a couple minutes later, I started hitting the drums. She goes, "I told you don't hit the drums. I'm trying to watch TV." And at 8, 9 years old, you only have so much, like 5 minutes is the world of time when you want to do something. And I hit him again, and third story window, they went out the back window. So,
Oh. And how did you progress from that to playing the guitar?
well, I had a toy guitar or a small guitar, and I wanted to play, so I would kind of strum on that a little bit. And then, and when we lived in Brooklyn, I was young. There was a guy on the block named Mark Brown who played guitar, and he showed me kind of how to play a song on one string kind of thing, and that got me fascinated. And then pretty much I was that annoying kid that every time I saw somebody with a guitar playing, I would go up and go, "Excuse me, could you show me how to do that? Could you show me one thing?" And so I've actually held that philosophy where you can learn one thing from everybody you see play guitar, even if they've been playing for a year or something like that. They may approach something different than you would have, and you could definitely go learn something from it. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm a firm believer in that. Especially as I've gotten older, I've been less guarded with things that I've picked up, and shared things with my peers around here, and they do the same. And it's a great way you can learn from everybody.
Absolutely.
But I wanted to ask you, you said you played drums for a little bit when you were 8 or 9. Were you any good? Could you like hold a beat?
No,
No.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I could do it now. I mean, I play a lot of instruments and program a lot of instruments on the records I produce
Uh-huh.
for other artists. Yeah.
So I do find that that's a very good grounding for people. Guys who are great at rhythm guitar, and let's face it,
Yeah.
that's 90% of the gig,
Yes.
are usually really good if you give them a set of drumsticks and say, play me some beats. So I was just wondering
It's
whether
a
that was a follow through for you from when you were young.
I definitely listen to and hear drums first. I hear the groove first, and so that helps translate. But yeah, there's a lot of great players, and you think about it, they're great rhythm players, great lead players, and are great rhythm players, usually. Um, and also depends on what you consider great. But yeah, you got to have that feel, the flow, in order for it to just kind of just sing along, I should say.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for the
So
guitar to sing along.
you said you started on a toy guitar. Do you remember what your
I think it
first
was in.
serious guitar was?
Oh, it was well, here it was a store called Sears, and it was a guitar called Telstar. I think it was Telstar. I'm pretty sure it was Telstar, and it was like a Telly.
Uh-huh.
It was a really odd Telly knockoff kind of thing.
Nice. And I see you play kind of more of a Strat style instrument these days with the Nags.
Yes, this is my model. This is a Nag Severin LM, and it has my little logo there, which I don't know if you can't really see, but it's here you go. Ooh, there we
Oh,
go.
nice.
Yep, that's it. And it's got it's Joe Nags, who used to run the PRS. He created the PRS, the Paul Reed Smith private stock program.
Nice.
And in fact, the entire Nags team now is the original private stock program at PRS from years ago.
Okay. That's a great pedigree
Um,
there.
yeah, Joe's definitely just an awesome builder, really a great builder. And this is his designs. He also designed several of the PRS guitars, the Starlet and Mira, Archtop series, I believe, and the Vela. He designed those for PRS. Um, so it's got a great neck joint. It's a set neck, and it's his take on, like, I believe, a '63 Strat. Uh,
Okay.
I wish it was a take on a '64, only because I was born in 1964. But
Uh-huh.
um, it's got his tremolo system on it. So there's this bridge that's more like a telly, this plate where the
Yep.
pickup sits in it,
Yep.
and the whole tremolo is attached to that instead of attached to 6 screws or 2 screws and stuff.
Okay.
Um, so it helps transmit a little bit of sustain for it. And when I first met Joe, I went to the factory just because I like guitar factories, and had a great conversation with Joe. And then he let me play all the guitars that were done. So carefully I'm trying to play because they're all like really expensive guitars that are all spoken for. And I had normally been a humbucker guy in the back. In fact, mainly for the last probably 15 years before that, I was humbucker, single coil humbucker.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things I noticed was there was a slight difference between the guitars at the humbucker here than they do with the single coil. The humbuckers don't have this extra plate.
Uh-huh.
It cuts off right there.
Yep.
And acoustically, the guitars felt different to me, or it
Really?
sounded different to me. Yeah. And so I said, no, I really want to go with that. He goes, but you normally use a single coil. I mean, a humbucker. So I said I wanted to stick with it because there was something different about that, something special about that. And I spoke with Steve Blucher at Damasio, who's the vice president of Damasio. He recommended this pickup to go in there, and it was great. I've been happy with it since. So it's a Satch track, Joe Satriani
Cool.
neck. It's the neck version of the bridge pickup.
Oh, really?
Version of the Satriani set in
Yeah.
the bridge.
Yeah. So funny that you said your first series guitar was a telly style, and now you've come around to using the telly style bridge pickup, single coil mounted into
Yeah,
the metal.
yeah.
Does that add a
I
bit of a twang to it? Do you find?
uh I don't know if it adds a twang. It adds something. It definitely adds a little sustain or something
Yeah.
special about it. Like I said, I went back and forth between the ones with it and without it. And I do have a couple of tellies. As a producer, I produce lots of different singer-songwriters and Native American and world music, gospel, R&B, pop. Um, there's a telly on almost every record that I've ever produced because you start layering and you go, I want to squeeze in one more guitar part.
Hmm.
You can pick up a telly and find a part, and it finds its place in the mix.
Yeah.
So it's good to have a telly. Now that said, I've rarely taken one out of the house to play live with because I'm like, there's just the telly.
Yeah.
As my main guitar, I don't know if I could do that, but it's
I
fun.
I totally relate to that. I'm mostly a Strat style kind of guy,
Hmm.
but I did get a Richie Kotzen Telecaster about 10 years ago now, and I just sold it last week,
Oh wow, okay.
only because I need to buy a serious amp again, and I think I'll get more traditional vintage style telly this time around. But I hear what you're saying, like about it just sitting in the mix. I got a little Vox
Hmm.
AC10 amplifier back there that when I need
Yeah,
that overdub that just sits right in the mix, Telecaster through that is just superb. And
nice.
I found the middle position on the pickup selector, so using the bridge and the neck pickup together, was the sound that I was chasing for so many years as a Strat guy, going, it's just not that sound that I'm trying to get. I've heard other guys doing it, and then I realized it's always guys who are frontmen of pop bands that are playing a Telecaster that I was trying to recreate.
Hmm.
So I put the
Yeah.
neck on switch. I got a little switch on all my Strats to get the neck and bridge at the same time, and it gets me
Okay.
ballpark. But yeah, love that
Nice.
sound.
Yeah.
Love that sound.
I gotta try that with the wiring. I'll
Oh,
definitely
you
try that
haven't
on the
tried that?
guitar.
It's great. It's great.
Nope. I mean, I do it with a telly, but I haven't done it with a three pickup guitar.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
So do you remember what you were playing your original Telecaster through?
No,
No.
I had a Park made a couple little small amplifiers. Um, they were not really great amplifiers. And then later on, I ended up getting a Marshall Lead 12. Remember the Lead 12? It was a
Uh huh.
it was a small 12-watt amp.
Yep.
I had some of those. I had a Fender Champ. I had the Tube Champ. I had a Music Man 110 RD. It was a 45-watt amp, I believe. And then in the 80s, I had a couple different. I had a JC 120. I had a used Fender twin reverb with EV 120s, I guess, I think, or something like that.
Yep.
EVL. That amp was so heavy, I took it to one gig and sold it before, so I didn't have to bring it back. I was like, dude, you're like, oh, that's a great amp. You want to buy it? And like, yeah, when? I was like, right now. You can have it right now. I did not want to carry this back.
I can
It
relate to
was
that.
too heavy.
I had a Randall MTS rig over 10 years ago
Oh,
now,
yeah.
with
Hmm.
the whole modular setup that's in the Synergy products at the moment.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was in a road case, so it had the preamps and the power amp all in one. And I'd have friends ring me up going, hey, man, come over for a jam. I'd look at my rig and just think, no, I just couldn't be bothered taking that anywhere right now. So I totally
Hmm.
relate. Yeah. So
I
how
had
long?
the Ignitor version of that.
Oh, nice.
I had it
Nice.
for a while. Yeah.
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 I am tossing up on going that direction again with the Synergy. Um, yeah, loved it. Just the versatility of being able to have whatever module for the gig.
Hmm.
Speaking of gigs,
Hmm.
how old were you when you started gigging?
Um, yeah, I don't remember. It was all like I was in high school, probably 15,
Yeah.
15, 16. Yep.
And do
And
you
then
remember what
after high
type
school,
of
mhm.
do you
I'm
remember
sorry, what'd you
what
say?
type of band you started in back then? Was that like
Uh,
funk band, rock?
Well, I was kind of playing in with some guys in kind of a funk band and in a fusion band, but the band that really got me out to play in clubs was a band called The Cheats. And in high school, um, these are guys that were in my homeroom class, and their guitar player, I don't know, Richie, he left. He's actually the reason that I got to see Van Halen live. For
Really?
his mother worked at a place called Nassau Coliseum, and it's like the big stadium then. And she got tickets, and somebody he was taking his whole band, but somebody couldn't go, so they brought me, and that was the first time seeing a rock concert. It was Van Halen, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome." And then later on, for whatever reason, he was no longer in that band, or I went to jam with them, uh, and um, and then he was no longer in the band, and I ended up playing in the band for a while. And that was like my first time in clubs playing, and just a bar with a
Yeah.
bunch of people drinking and yelling songs out and stuff like that. So that was the beginning of that, and that was like probably the last year of high school. Yeah, we were too young to be there, but we played anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I can relate to that one. Sneaking in out through the back at a young age, and I can remember actually playing at a show, supporting a group that had a couple of hits back in the late '80s over here in Australia, and we had to do two sets before them. I was a 14-year-old kid in a smoky bar. In between sets, I just wanted to get out of there, and they wouldn't let me back in. They're like, "But I'm in the band," and they said, "Sure, you're in the band."
Oh,
Eventually,
wow,
the road crew come out and said, "Oh, there you are." Turned to the security, like, "Told you."
nice.
So you said that you had a bit of a progression playing first from the telly to your Nags, which has the single coil and the bridge, but you also went through some humbucker guitars. What type of guitars through the years did you find yourself falling back
Uh,
on?
well, I got so my first real guitar that I would say real guitar after that was a used 1976 Ibanez Les Paul copy,
Oh,
Ibanez
nice.
Les Paul, and I still have that. And it actually had later on I met Bill Lawrence, and he gave me a L500 pickup, and I put that in the back. I still have that pickup in the back. There's a Damasio in the front, and I don't know remember which one it is in the front pickup. And then in 1988, I became an Ibanez artist. I was with the Ibanez for 26 years.
Wow.
So I went through several. I went through 540Rs, which was the Radius, and became the 540R.
Yep.
Then it became the Satriani model. I did 540. I did a couple S models. I was with them for a while, and I launched a lot of guitars.
Yep.
So I did I introduced the low pro edge tremolo,
Oh, cool.
um, the Wizard 2 neck, I believe it was, and which was a really thin neck, completely thin compared to this. And and then I later on stopped using lock and tremolos, and I went to the Blazer, which the reissue Blazer issue, which is more like a Strat, and it was 22 frets. Had the Wilkinson VSV bridge or the VS 100 first, and so that was like a super Strat kind of thing. And I
Nice.
switched to that in 98, I think 97, 98. Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how about amplifiers? I know you're an Axe kind of guy now. What was the progression that got you all through the years up to the Axe?
Uh, you know, I went a little hog wild with rigs back in the early '80s. When I was after high school, I ended up playing in a band that did Rush covers. We did a tribute to Rush, and then later on tribute to Zebra and the Police and Triumph trio bands. And I had two huge pedal boards, one for clean, one for dirty. And I
Wow.
love effects. I love just delays and stuff. And then I got into rack stuff. And then when I got my first big tour, this Spanish Italian artist named Miguel Bosé, um, I had the budget to build a real rig. So I went full Bradshaw, TC Electronics 2290, a Mesa Boogie quad power amp, and a preamp, and then a QSE power amp, and TC chorus, rack mount chorus, and Yamaha SPX90, the whole full on 80s rig.
Yep.
And I did that for a while and used Harkey speaker cabinets. So we used to carry a bunch of 412 cabinets. I even used that rig with some different power amps, a Saldano, different preamps, a Saldano and a Marshall preamp on a guy named Billy Squire. I don't know if he was popular there, but I did a tour with Billy Squire. And so I wish I was into vintage guitars and old amps then, because Billy had 58 burst and 57 gold tops and a no cast on the road. And his idea of a channel switching amp was a 100-watt Marshall Plexi for clean and a 50-watt JCM 800 for lead with an AB box and a wah pedal. And you start the concert out with a no caster, then you go up to a 59 Les Paul Jr. with a P90, then you go to a 57 gold top, and then you finish the night with a 58 burst.
Wow.
And it's like, okay. And here I am stepping on buttons and stuff like, which is cool, is different, but I wish I was into that as well back then. I'm into it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I got off the road, my first record came out in 1990. I was using that rig as well and playing clubs where I took up half the stage with my rig, those kind of days. And then in the 90s, the mid 90s, somehow I ended up switching to a pedal board. And it was because I was living in Manhattan and a lot of stuff was in storage. And I got called to do just a sideman gig. And I ran to a store and they let me borrow a Fender Pro Junior, little 110, one volume knob, one tone knob. Uh-huh. And I was like, all right, it'll do. And I had a couple pedals and I plugged in and did the gig. And it's like, wow, this amp sounds great. But I was so used to playing the stereo. I kept trying. I tried a Laney. I tried a couple other things that I had access to. And then I moved to San Diego, walked into a local music store and they had another Tweed. And the one that I had was, so I went back to the music store and I said, yeah, I don't want to bring this back. I'd like to buy it. And they sold it to me really cheap. And it was a great amp. And I still have it, actually. And so when I lived in San Diego, I walked into a local music store and there was another Tweed Pro Junior there. And I traded for that. And then that was my rig. 2 Tweed Pro Juniors. Remember the Boss Chorus Ensemble?
Yep.
The original. That was what I used to split the signal. And some Boss delays and different overdrive units here and there and stuff like that. And then in 2000s, I was living in New Mexico and started playing with some Native American artists. And we were traveling a lot and all by plane. Uh-huh. And trying to get on a plane with a pedal board with 10 pedals and then 2 pedals that aren't on the pedal board, because it was all backline. So you had to have the right overdrive. So I would take either 2 overdrives or 2 distortions. And because the overdrives didn't work if they gave, you have 2 small Fender amps, tube Fender amps on your rider. And then you show up and there's like a JC 120 and something else that's solid state. And you go, the overdrives aren't going to work. So you have to use distortion pedals. So I was flying with all these pedals, and then I remember reading something on, I think it was the Gear page with this guy, Scott Peterson, and he was talking about this thing called the Fractal Audio Axe Effects. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. And I figured at least it would work for effects. And I was so pleasantly surprised about the gain and the amp sims and stuff like that. So I've been doing the Fractal thing for since 2008, 2007, 2008. Wow. I still have real amps. I love them. Mm-hmm. There's a couple there. So that's what I actually use inside the Fractal. It's a Plexi and then a Tremolux.
Yep.
I use those two most of the time in the Fractal. And I love effects too, all pedals and stuff like that too.
Yeah. It is very close these days, isn't it?
Close enough for me. Definitely close enough for me. The consistency, to travel, to get there, do a sound check, hit a chord, and go, yeah, that's my sound. I tell you, so here you go. In 2019, I flew to Australia and I played in Australia for the first time ever for me. And I did the strings attached guitar festival on the Margaret River.
Yep.
Margaret River.
Yep.
And I also played Brisbane, and I took some pictures on the Gold Coast there. I did not bring a rig. I spoke with my friend Leon Todd, and I said, "Do you have a Fractal AX8 that I could borrow?" He said, "Yes." I emailed him my patches. He sent it over to Brisbane from where he was on the other coast.
Yep.
I plugged in. I got there, got the AX8. I think I landed and got to this office where I do a Tuesday night live show here, which is Wednesday morning there.
Yep.
And I had maybe 2 hours to do my Wednesday morning, the Tuesday night live show. I pulled his unit out of the box, plugged in, hit a couple of sounds, said, "Okay, I'm ready," set up my cameras and stuff like that. And I went live and did my show with a rig that I had never, his version of my rig.
Yep.
And it worked. Same thing. I went to Korea in 2019. I borrowed. I reached out and said, "Does anyone in Seoul have an AX8 I could borrow for 2 days and work out some sort of trade?" And the guy came to the hotel room. He said, "Yes, nice to meet you." We took some pictures. He lent me his rig. I did my show from the hotel room. I did the performance I was supposed to do. Met him, gave it back, and flew home. And it was great. That's the kind of world we're in these days, which is amazing,
Absolutely, absolutely. I've been dangerously close to going down that road again. I was using a Kemper a few years back. I was playing in a Queen tribute show, jumping on
cool.
airplanes every weekend, and as a fly rig, I think I was probably one of the first guys in Australia touring with a Kemper. And the sound guys, you'd see them, "Hello, what's this?" They plug in a couple of Canon XLRs and then play a few notes, and it became a joke because we just knew that people would be running down to the front of the stage going, "What is that you're playing through?"
Yeah.
So they are great. Is it 100% there? I listen to so many A/B comparisons, and it is so close. It is so close.
I don't worry about the comparisons because from living in the 80s, you could take 10 Marshalls and line them up, and one's going to sound horrible. One or two might sound amazing. Three might be like, "Yeah, it sounds good." But they could be from the same run, from the same year, and they all sound different. Yeah. So it works as long as I have a sound that I don't feel like I'm compromising and using a sound that I don't like or don't love. I'm perfectly happy with it. I still love. They're all tools to me. I still like these. I'm not taking any of these amps out on the road. Tube amps, for me, taking them on the road, having to replace tubes and stuff like that. The most thing I could see doing was I love that rig with the pedal board and the two Pro Juniors. They're small. I might take them to a club locally where I can drive to real quick.
Yeah.
But it was a joke when I lived in New Mexico and I had those two those two Pro Juniors. I lived on a dirt road. It was bumpy, and I would have to take the tubes out going to the gig and coming back. Otherwise, the tubes would just be jacked up.
Wow.
It was so bad. And I had a road case too. If I didn't want to take the road case to a local gig, but after a while I started taking a road case to a local gig, and I would still take the tubes out. It would just be not good. They become microphonic real quick.
Yeah, right. I'm going to have to check out the Axe FX3. I've had a lot of guests on who have gone that way. I'll try and get my hands on one and see. It might be the way to go, seeing as I'm at a bit of a crossroads rig-wise. I did borrow a Soldano SLO 100 to play a Van Halen memorial tribute thing a couple of weeks ago, and oh my God, that sounded glorious.
Nice. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, Larry, production's a big part of your world as well. When did you get a start with production? Is that something that just always went hand in hand with being a player for you, or was there a moment where you stuck your hand up and went, "I'm going to have a go at this"?
I messed around with it, but I didn't understand what I was doing and stuff like that early. And then I was always in studios on the other side of the glass, on the playing side. And then too long to get into now, but some things happened in 92, 93, 94 that left me like, I don't know what to do. And those days it was still you could, it was at the beginning of like, you didn't have to have a massive studio to do a record. You still had to have a lot of money. You had to have to buy a lot of gear. Not like today where you could do it on a laptop or an iPad or something like that
Yeah.
and still have quality sound. If you know what you're doing, you can still have quality sound and multiple tracks. Um, but a friend of mine gave me the keys to his house and said, "You need to make a record. Here's the keys to my house." And he had studio gear in his basement, and and then so I was down there alone, and I was like, "Wow, I've never been on this side completely." And I remember making phone calls to some amazing friends and people that put mega stars on hold to tell me how to hook up compressors into a mixing board there. And I did my own record, and uh, when I ended up, it's a long story, but when that record was finished, I did two records. One was horrible, one was really good. Um, when that record was finished and it was having some success, it showed me that I could do this on my own. Back when people weren't doing it necessarily on their own, not everybody was doing it on their own. So when I moved to San Diego, I got some gear. I got put together a little home studio with the technology at that time, and which was a pretty effective studio. And I was working on my stuff, and I would meet local musicians, and they go, "Oh, you have a studio? Can you help me record a single?" And so I would do a song with quite a few artists that I had met, and then a year later, I'm still working on my record. And they came back to me and said, "Hey, I'm doing a whole record, and I really like what you did. Can we work out something so you work with me?" And then I was learning it's really hard to learn production and engineering at the same time. There's two different sides of the brain.
Uh-huh.
But so I was learning the engineering for that first year, and feeling comfortable. You're always learning as an engineer, always learning as an engineer. But I felt comfortable. Then I could start getting into the production choices and making decisions and stuff. And so I ended up producing three records for three artists at that time, and that led me on a path to production. And then when I got to um, Santa Fe, New Mexico, they have a really cool New Mexico Music Awards show and stuff like that. So someone introduced me to that. I was producing lots of different artists, all different styles of music, as I listened to all different styles of music, and started winning some awards in that. And that just propelled me the more on the production side. And then I was playing live with a Native American artist named Robert Mirabal, and his record label asked me to produce a couple of things. And the first time I remember them saying, "All right, so this record that you just did, it's in the running for a Grammy." I'm like, "What?" It's like, okay, that's like not even was never even in my thought process. And then the second record we did in a series, or the third record we did in a new series, was nominated for a Grammy and won. And I was like, so that propelled me more into production. That sends you right down the path of like, oh, you got to produce more. And unfortunately, when I was living in New Mexico, I only did 14 of my shows in 10 years. I did sideman shows with other artists, and I did a lot of production, but only did 14 of my shows
Okay.
in 10 years.
Yeah.
And then, now I'm in Alabama, and I've been striving for a balance between production, playing with other artists, playing for other artists, and playing my own shows, doing clinics, teaching, um, all kinds of things.
So
Just a balance.
the line seems to have been blurred in recent years between what is a producer and what is an engineer. I see a lot of kids that go to do a course for a couple of years and they come out and they say, "Oh, I'm a producer now. I know how to use Ableton Live or something." And I sit there and or they
Yeah.
say, "Oh, I'm an engineer. I know how to do this." And I kind of struggle. I think, I've made my own records for a long time. I don't consider myself an engineer because I don't know the technical too much side of
hmm
things too much. But how would you define a producer versus an engineer?
Uh, well, there is a blurred line. It still has to be a little bit more rigid than what we were just talking about. Uh, right now, I'm considered an all-in-one producer. So I work with solo artists usually, and I am also playing most of the instruments on there, whatever they don't play, at least to get started. And if we have the budget, and there's someone that I think it's right to replace something that I did, then I'm all about hiring them to replace something that I did. So it could be bass, it could be guitar, it could be keyboards or drums. Um, but I like to paint the picture first and then go, all right, this section of the picture could be better if we get so and so to do that. Um, an engineer is a problem solver. An engineer is someone that listens to what's going on and goes, all right, I know how to record that, capture it, and do it. And someone comes in and goes, I'm in a punk band. I got this ratty sounding guitar, to this ratty sounding pedal, to this ratty sounding amp, but that's my sound. So the only job the engineer's job is to do is to capture that. Maybe to go, all right, just check your tuning, but we're ready to go. I'm going to capture that as best as possible. A producer's job is to go, yeah, that's a nice sound, but maybe we should try a different guitar through the ratty pedal, through the ratty amp, and maybe you should play this part. To play the part you just played, yep, go into the other part. A producer has to see the big picture, has to help an artist um, not shoot themselves in the foot, and also bring out the best in an artist. So I don't think a producer's job is to go, hey, you're really weak here, so you should go work on that. By that point, you're in the studio, you're ready to make a record. Your job is to make sure that people's confidence is as strong as possible. So maybe not focus on the weak, but focus on the strong and build around that, what they're strong at, and bring the best of them out. And they can work on that other stuff later on, maybe for another record or through the live thing, it'll help them. But it's really to go, all right, so you want to make a reggae record, but you're from Ireland and you have a country twang. So if you've created a two unique style, that's great. But right now, I'm not sure if this is really believable. So let's find, maybe we can do a pop version of it with a little bit of a country twang. But we're not going down the road of trying to do a legitimate stone cold reggae record, because that's not going to work. You also have to bring the artist into a bit of reality a little bit here and there. So there are a lot of guys that are there's a younger generation that gets a machine and they can make beats, and that's what they call it. I'm a producer, I make beats and stuff, and they sell a beat. That's not what I do. I'm doing the whole song, if not the whole record. And we talk about the record beforehand. Usually, what kind of record do you want to make? What kind of artist are you? Are you 22 to 24 and trying to make a pop record? Or are you 45 to 55 and you want to make a record, maybe old school sounding, that's not super commercial today? Do I had a singer, she's a friend of mine, when I lived in Mexico, and we were just talking, we met for some other reason, but we started talking about stuff, and she goes, you're a producer, you're doing all this stuff, you should produce me. I said, I don't know. And she goes, well, I'm tired of all these other producers. They all want to make me country. I'm not country. I'm like, I'm listening to her twang in her voice. And I said, I tell you what, I'm going to program a drum beat, no other instruments. So I programmed a straight up hip hop drum beat. I made a beat, hip hop as you can get. And I said, sing your song over this. And she sang it. I played it back. She goes, why does that sound country to me? I said, the only thing in it is you and a drum beat. And the drum beat is hip hop. So I don't think you're going to get away from that. So again, you have to be a little dose of reality. That's what she sounds like naturally. So I can't change that. I could try and force it, but I also believe in making things that are believable and real. And for a singer, the most important thing is, if you don't believe it, and you can't make me believe it, and then I don't want to listen to it. So anyway,
I absolutely agree with you there. So, Larry, to be handy in a studio, especially when it comes to mixing, etc., you need to have a good tone, a good ear for good tones. I've heard it said before that you can teach somebody how to pull a good guitar sound, but they have to know what a good guitar sound is in their head to be able to recreate it. What are some benchmark tones for you?
Benchmark tones.
Yeah.
You know, um, yeah, I don't. I strive to be me, especially as a guitar player,
Yeah.
as different as I can be to be me. And one of the things I'm most proud of is that people can have said that they've heard me and they've heard some recording and they knew it was me right away.
Mm.
Um, I can tell you guitarists that I love guitar sound wise,
Yeah.
and it started with Prince, um, Nile Rodgers from Chic, and a great producer. Eddie Van Halen just hit me hard, and then Eric Johnson really hit me hard.
Wow.
Um, and then I was into Andy Summers and Alex Lifeson from Rush. So those are guitar sounds that really left a mark on me. So whatever sounds that I go for, and also the local neighborhood hero when I grew up as a teenager was a guy named Steve Stevens, and
Uh-huh.
he's the guitar player Billy Idol. And Steve had a sound, and it was like, okay, all right, and he was into effects and stuff like that. And Steve is just great. But uh, so I don't really try to emulate other people's sounds, which is again why, like, certain things don't about what I don't understand about modelers. People get modelers and they go, I want this sound, I want the exact same sound. I know what it's like, what it takes to make a record, and whatever sound you're listening to in the final isn't the way the guitar started out
Mm. Mm.
in the studio.
Yeah.
It's been compressed, tracking. Probably it's been definitely compressed in the mix. It's been EQ'd, shaved off, shaved down to fit in the mix of a song. No one says, "Oh, this is a great guitar sound. Build a whole record around that guitar sound." You still gotta, the minute there's a vocal on it, the vocal is the most important thing on the record.
Absolutely.
If it's an instrumental, that's great. The minute you put a vocal on there, it is the most important. If people can't hear the vocal or don't like the vocal, they are not going to stick around for the guitar solo.
Yeah.
So, um, and then it's been mastered, so it's been EQ'd and compressed some more, the whole thing. So, I just go for the sound that I hear in my head, which is I try to not to make it too bright, and to make it full, and um, it has to move me a little bit. Um, I used to have a student that would buy some of my gear as I would go through gear, and he would replace his rig and then come see me play, and I'd have another different rig. And he
Yeah.
goes, "How come you always have a different rig every couple of 6 months or so?" And but you still sound the same. I said, "I don't know. I'm still hearing the same sounds. I'm still reaching for the same sounds." And that works for you and against you. I've had people uh, buy an amp or a modeler, and they go, "I can't get this thing to sound good at all." And they're making everything that they try. They've tried all the modelers, or tried a couple of amps that people say are great amps, and they keep ending up with pretty close to the same sound in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
So it's what they hear. That
Yeah.
there's not much you can do about it. I guess you have to retrain yourself if you don't like that sound. You have
Yeah.
to retrain your ears to look for something different.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, so I look for a fullness, and I still think that I'm more concerned with the clean sound first, getting the right clean sound, and then that sets up where I need to feel for the lead tones, for the dirty tones.
Okay.
Uh, if I go for just trying to, like, if I try a new amp or something like that, and I go for the dirty tones first, my judgment might be skewed. If I start with the clean sound, I can find the right clean sound easily,
Yeah. Right.
or close to it. Once I find that and I go back and forth to the dirty sound, that helps me shape like where the dirty sound needs to go.
I'm
Might
going
not
to
be
try to.
exact, but it's in the ballpark.
I'm going to try that approach. I can't say I've tried it that way. Now, you mentioned about the lead vocal being the most important thing. Once there's a singer on there, it all becomes about that. A great bit of advice that I came across on the internet was metal producer Andy Sneap when asked about how he mixes guitar solos. And he said he treats it like a lead vocal. And when I read that, the penny dropped for me. I tried EQing it the way I would a lead vocal to take up the same space. And wow, all of a sudden it was like, yeah, there it is. I was treating it like a guitar previously, trying to make it find its little place to sit in and not getting in everybody's road. But it's like, no, we're taking over. We're the lead vocal for now. And is that an approach that you take?
Yeah, well, anything that, if there's a sax solo, anything that comes in that the main focus needs to be treated like the lead vocal, because it temporarily is the lead vocal.
The star, so to speak. Yeah, it's the star of what's going on. Yeah. And it's amazing, just the gear that we have at our disposal now. You mentioned Steve Stevens. I had Steve on here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Oh, he's a great guy to talk to. And he said that he believes there's never been a better time as players for gear than now, just with everything that's available to people. And I've heard him playing through an Axe Effects and recreating some of his classic sounds from records that we all know. And you're like, whoa, listen to that. But then, I had the pleasure of seeing him live as well, just before the pandemic. And his guitar sound was amazing, but he was using heads through a load box and speaker IRs. And he was just before we went to air, was just saying about how much he loved the speaker IR technology, and that he'll never mic up his cabs on stage again. And it is an exciting time.
It is a great time to be a guitar player or a musician. Not the best time to try and make a living at it, but it is probably the best time it's ever been. Cheap guitars are better than they ever were. You could dial up a modeler on your phone, and as long as you have the right interface to connect to it, you have a rig that when we were like 16, 17, we would have killed for. We were like, oh, this is the most amazing guitar sound. We didn't have that back then. You didn't have a practice amp that was just sounded like the best rigs ever. And the fact that you could also record it. You could record it, if you were lucky enough to have a 4-track, one of the Roland or the Boss or the Roland or Tascam, 4 tracks, or maybe you had an 8-track, but it was you could have a 24-track on your phone right now with plugins, compressors and stuff. The pedals, the quality of delays that we have now. It's like, all right, so we had a lot analog delays. Well, we have digital delays that mimic analog delays right now. Or you could just buy analog delays right now. Or you could buy something that has digital, analog, anything farm, just the fact that I can have from that sound. Can you hear that?
Sure can.
From that sound to this sound. In a second. It's amazing. I remember when presets happened and MIDI and channel switching, and just like to be able to move all of your devices to go to, I'm moving one device. I'm moving within it, and it's an amazing time to be a guitar player right now.
Absolutely.
Musician.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can remember it was probably very early 90s when I got myself an ADA preamp and a quadriverb and was able to MIDI switch all that. And I used to see these guys doing all the tap dancing. I'm like, man, get with the program. And I did, there's an ADA right behind me, right. Oh, it's all backwards there.
Oh, yeah. I see it. Yeah.
I did a little demo of that, comparing that to the old JMP1, the Marshalls, a few months ago. And back then I thought that those things were great, but there's a bit of an articulation just missing I find like when I go to play like a major seven chord or something, it's not a pleasant sound. This sound sort of takes
Yeah.
over where a note should be. That's one thing I
Hmm.
notice with some high end amplifiers versus some not so high end. Um,
Hmm.
Now, Larry, we said about how times have changed now, and streaming is a big thing, and you're quite a streamer yourself, yeah?
I stream 2 shows a week, and actually, I've been streaming for 4 years now.
Really?
3 years before the pandemic happened, I started doing what I call Tuesday Night Live and streaming every Tuesday, no matter where it was. I've done it from airports, baggage claim. Almost did it on an air in a, on a plane at one point.
Wow.
Um, I've done it at the gate. I've done it in friends' backyards. I've done it in green rooms before a show or after a show, like a live show. Um, and I would just play some songs and tell people what's going on and where I was going to be. And like I said, when I got to Australia in 2019, within 2 hours of landing, I was doing my live stream show, which was Wednesday morning there. And and when the pandemic hit, um, it just everybody was streaming, so I started doing more, and I stepped it up a little bit. I got a different switcher system thing, and incorporated some other videos, and just learning about it. I kept getting asked questions about how to stream, and I was like, so it forced me to do some more research. And it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm going to try and add that to my show. And then something happened. I can't remember what caused me to do it, but I said I started streaming on a Sunday every now and then someone said you should make that a regular thing. It's nice to have the 2 shows. I go, well, I don't want to repeat myself. So Tuesdays became electric, and then I started doing all all acoustic on Sunday nights. And
Cool.
Sunday nights has taken on its own mellow vibe. We call it. I call it. It happened on a Sunday, and it just so happens I had like some popcorn that I had made, and so I just like would tell people, all right, so we're gonna play. Grab your popcorn or chocolate, candies and some hot chocolate or coffee, whatever, and just hang out. And it's just ethereal to some. So I have two acoustic records now. I have, or actually, I had an acoustic record from '95, and now I have a second one and that I released last November called "The Light Within." And actually, there's a song in that record called "Popcorn and Chocolate." And it
Okay.
directly comes from Sunday nights and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I stream, and it's been I love getting messages from people. We are at some crazy, unprecedented times,
Hmm.
and it's some people are thriving in it, and others are not big time. And so it's been stressful. And whenever you think, oh, well, it's not that bad. And then something else happens and you're like, oh, it's really bad. Because most of us are teetering on like, okay, all right, this is a little bit much. This is weird. What's going on? You got the rains going, you got the floods going on there.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a pandemic. You couldn't leave your house, but now you really can't leave your house because, you might drown. and, and when you stop to think about what's going on, it's heavy, So uh, for an hour or so on a Sunday night or a Tuesday night, I'm able to help some people through something like that. Um, wasn't trying to, but I was just playing relaxing, cool music, and I would just get some amazing emails, uh, actual handwritten letters, text messages from people how they loved and needed the music at the time. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to continue doing this every Sunday. And then I set them both at the same through the recommendations of people that watch the show over and over. Um, the time period. So it's 9 o'clock Eastern time on a PM Eastern time. And yeah, and I have people that have been watching that tune in on Tuesday nights that have been watching for all 4 years. Like
Wow.
they watch every week.
Yep.
And now I have a group of people that watch every Sunday. They're there. It's a community in the comments, and people just talk, and they talk to each other. They say stuff to me to let everybody know where they're from. And then Tuesday night, there are some that there's quite a few that people that watch every Tuesday night and every Sunday night. And I'm honored that people would want to spend 2 nights of a week, watching me play guitar, which is great.
That's awesome, man. That's totally
yeah.
awesome. So, Larry, I do want to ask you, and I ask this of most people, how they approach the fretboard, because everybody is different. And I always learn, we talk about learning from your peers, how they approach it all. But I just want to throw in there that anybody that's watching that wants to ask Larry any questions, drop them into the chat window now. I saw there was a few popped up earlier, but just to save me going through all those, throw your questions at Larry now as I ask him, how do you approach the fretboard, mate?
To me, soloing is like speaking. So you want to phrase. Actually, one thing I got from Steve Vai, which is about singing what you play, and your mind won't let you sing anything silly, which means you won't play anything silly.
Okay.
But what I teach when I'm at like Vai Academy or something, and I try to stress that you work on techniques, not to let techniques dictate. So you work on like, let me put some tone on here. So you might work on picking everything. You might work on slurring or hammer-ons and pull-offs. More tone on here. You might work on bending. You might work on using both fingers. You work on fast playing. You should work on slow playing. They're all little techniques to help you communicate. Soloing is communicating. So the best analogy I have is, as I say, is if I go, "Hey Rick, look at that guitar over there," or "Hey Rick, look at that guitar over there." "Hey Rick, look at that guitar over there." I just said the same thing 3 different ways, right?
Yep. And
that's how you should approach soloing. They all 3 meant something different. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you want to convey that. So we don't speak like this the whole time. Mm-hmm. We don't speak like this the whole time. And we don't speak like this the whole time. So don't play that way. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So don't just put your guitar and go. And don't go. It's all about changing. My in-ears keep cutting it out. But anyway, it's a little bit of how you would, the flow of how you would speak. You speed up when it's urgent to give a little bit of urgency.
Yep.
You slow down. So when you're communicating and you want to stress something, you want people to really understand something, you could speed up to let them know that, this is urgent, and you can slow down to let them know that this is urgent. And when you're speaking, you're not thinking about that. That's just years of process.
Yeah.
Of hanging out with your friends, learning stuff in school. Soloing should be the same way. Is that this is the mood that I want to interject. This is the mood that I want to present. This is the mood I'm in. And this is what I want to say. And it's the same thing. It's like you have years of playing fast, years of playing slow. It's playing all one way doesn't make any sense because you don't speak that way. You don't communicate that way. So
Absolutely. That's some great
that's
advice.
how I approach it.
How about in terms of like roadmaps of seeing where the right notes are? Do you use what they call the cage system, playing around the chords? Are you a 3 note per string kind of guy? Do you combine all of that? Is there a particular way that you view the roadmaps, so to speak?
It's all about the techniques that you learn over the years and over time, and use whatever you need to do. I'm big on learning the fretboard, knowing
Uh-huh.
where the notes are on the fretboard,
Yep.
and knowing that this E are slightly different, and that's very different. So you might want to end up there, or end up there. They all sound different to me, but knowing where they are is a key thing, and knowing what the other notes are. So I guess tend to play more around the entire key,
Yep.
and also knowing what the chords are, and having an idea of where I want to fit around the chords. But I'm not necessarily playing arpeggios through a chord,
Yep.
just kind of guy, unless the part calls for it. In more of a pop sideman kind of thing, the solo might take on that.
Yep.
In my thing, it's more bluesy rock, funk rock kind of thing. I'm doing it. I guess it ends up being more modal, but I'm thinking just more of the key tonal center.
Yep.
Um, and just knowing the fretboard. If you know the fretboard, then there's less guessing and more experimenting. It's like, I want to go north, I want to go south, I want to go east or west. I want to go deeper, higher. And then you just go where you want to go. But I mean, everything is in 4 frets.
Yep.
And then
So
you can
when
go
you
to the
say,
next 4 frets and everything.
because I did see you kind of jumping from position to position as you were playing in what some people call the cage system. So based around the C, A, G, E, D. Is that how you've arranged things? Like when you've got little clusters of notes, or have you got some other way that, okay, we're playing in A, I know there's my A note. If it's a major, then I've got a major third there. If it's minor, I've got a minor third there. Are you?
Yeah, I never officially learned the cage system, so maybe I should learn it.
I never did until
I just
recently
learned
myself.
the fretboard.
Yeah. Okay. So I found out that that's a name for something that a lot of people have been doing for a while, just based around the C, A, G, E, and D chord shapes. But yeah, it was one of those things a few years ago. I mentioned I was playing in a Queen tribute show, and I started seeing a lot of videos of myself on YouTube from the crowd when I was taking extended solos, and I realized that I only had 2 chunks of the fretboard completely sussed out, and if I ventured outside of that, I would land on a lot of wrong notes. So I thought, it's time to learn the fretboard, and I started asking people how they approach it, and that's where I had a few people say, man, I just play around these different chord shapes, or some with a 3 note per string, and it is funny just to see how everyone is so different with how they do it.
Yeah, at one point when I was doing the Van Halen stuff, but that was like, 3 notes per string is the fastest way to play, and it's like, all right, cool. So I would work on that. All this stuff I worked on for a long time, but then later on, it just became a tool.
Yep.
And it became more about communication. How it's hard to explain because we're not playing with anything or anyone right now.
Yeah.
But which I play very differently in a live setting or over something than I do just sitting here trying to explain it. But yeah, I worked on 3 notes. Like I said, I worked on that. I worked on bending. I always joke about, when at one point when I was really young, I was working on bending. And when you're 12 years old, you can sit there and go. And my mom would come in and go, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm working on bending." She goes, "All right, that's starting to drive me crazy. Play something different." And we're like, "Okay, all right, cool." And seriously, I went. And she came in and was like, oh crap, that's not any different. To me, it was a world of different, but to her, it was exactly the same thing. And so you work on all those techniques, but at some point, music is not about what techniques you're good at. It's about communicating. So you use all those techniques. You know, I've done solos where there was no fast run. There's no 3 notes per string at all. It's a 4-bar solo, and it has to convey something different. And it might be the chord. It might be. I wish I could remember. There's a Steve Lukather solo that's 1 note. Is it Steve Lukather? Oh, maybe it's not. It's one of the early session guys. But it's like 1 note for 4 bars, and then it's an insane run the last, or 3 bars, 3.5 bars, and an insane run the last part of it. Yep. It's like one, and it's this feedback, and then it takes off. But that alone conveys so much about the song that it was in. It was just like this 1 note, and it's hanging, and this little edge of feedback, and then the release is a fast run, as opposed to a fast run and the release is 1 long note at the end. But it was perfect for the song at the time. So the idea is to work on all those techniques and then not have to think about them when you're actually performing, when you're trying to communicate. You know, can you imagine being on a date and you have to stop and go, all right, I'm going to talk about this now, and all right, so I should have to do this and do that and do this. But you want to just be free, and all your experiences you can pull from is like, is this appropriate in the conversation now? Yes. All right, cool. Yeah, you don't stop and think about that. It just flows out, you know?
Yep.
Anyway.
That whole thing of the restraint, you said the 1 note and then just a flurry of notes at the end. You know, Ed Van Halen was great at that. There's certain songs of his, like Dreams, you know, dun, 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 dun. He's just playing 2 notes for most of it. And then, you know, then he gets a bit more melodic, but he always sort of caps off with those the sprinkle, the liquidy blah, 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 at the end to climax. You know, he sets it up. He sets it up so well. Steve Vai's the same, man. You know, it's absolutely incredible.
I've been lucky enough to be on stage and jamming with Steve quite a few. The very first time was an Ibanez 100th anniversary party in Nagoya, Japan, and I remember being excited that I was there and on stage, and at the end we're all jamming. And then at some point I looked over and I go, wait, who made this order? Because it was Andy Timmons, one of my 2 favorite guitar players in the world, Andy Timmons and Eric Johnson.
Wow.
All right. And then, so it's Andy Timmons, who I've known for 30 plus years, Marty Friedman, and then Paul Gilbert, who's insane at everything, just insane at everything. And then Steve Vai, and then myself. And I'm thinking, all right, so no technically, pressure. As it goes in the round, I'm soloing in the middle of Steve Vai and Andy Timmons. So when Steve does a solo and you're like, oh man, it was great. Did you see that? Did you see that? All that whole time you're saying, did you see that? I can't believe it. I'm soloing. And then Andy comes on. And Simon Phillips is drumming. It's Simon Phillips, Jeff Bowders, and Pat Torpey. The thing I remember about that was I had known Steve, but this is the first time we've been on stage playing, and also we're right next to each other. So we were communicating from sound check on, and then he would do this amazing solo, and I'd be playing the rhythm going, oh yeah, okay, all right, that's Steve Vai. Okay. Oh wow. Oh wow. Oh, and then it's my turn, and he literally would just go wave on to me, and I would have to play, and there's nothing more intimidating that can be more intimidating than having Steve Vai standing next to you, yelling, encouraging things to you while you're soloing after he just did a monster solo, and you have to end it off, and you have to hand it off to Andy, but Steve is literally right here yelling really positive, cool stuff. And so since then, I've jammed with Steve, and we have a really good time jamming. I've been just at different shows. I've shown up, and he's brought me on, but also I've done 2 years at the Vi Academy, and gotten to jam with them. 2 years of teaching and running the jam sessions. at night. One of the jam sessions at night, and it's really cool playing with Steve. And and also we never play a song anymore. It's always like Larry starts something funky, and I always do something funky, and it's cool. So we have a really good time. But it's Steve Vai, doing
And
something.
you mentioned Andy Timmons as well, man. What a monster! What an absolute monster! So you know my friend Licia Louise,
Yes, yeah,
and
she's
it was
great.
probably about a year ago. I do a fair bit of recording with Licia. She's in here in a couple of
Hmm.
days' time, actually. And there was one time about a year ago, she was asking about different guitar players. She's always on the hunt for new things to soak in. And I brought up Andy Timmons, and we watched some of that. And she was just absolutely blown away. Um,
How could
and
you
yeah,
not be?
yeah. Just that right blend of touch and flash, but all just the right thing at the right time. That's such an art.
Right thing at the right time.
Yeah,
And you feel every note Andy's playing.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, Larry, I'm just going to go. There was a couple of questions that slipped by. There was a lot of kudoses and hellos from everybody.
Cool.
But there was a couple of questions here. Does Larry have a connection to Keene NH? I'm not sure what NH is. That's probably a state.
Keene, New Hampshire. I used to go up
Okay.
there and play in
Retro
93,
music.
94.
I seem
Yeah.
to remember
Who's
a
that from?
signed it. Route 9 Records. Does Larry have a connection to Keene NH? I seem to remember a signed photo at Retro Music.
Yeah, I don't know who that is, but yeah, the retro music. I used to go up there and hang out, rehearse in that place, and I used to go up and play shows at New Cheese, I think it was the bar. There's this tiny little bar across from the college I used to play at. I played in a restaurant there. I had a rhythm section there for a while. I mean, I guess I still do. We haven't played together in a while, but yeah, it's great. Mark Bond and Jeff Costello. It was great. Yeah.
There was another one here from Michael, and I'm going to assume that's my friend Mickey, who's a fantastic young guitar player, mate. He has autism. He's 15 years old, and you've never heard anyone play Dave Gilmour like Mickey. It's great to see
Awesome.
that he's into
Yeah.
such cool music. And he's asking what inspired you to play the guitar. Now we did talk about your early days, and you said you started on drums, but why
Yeah.
guitar? What inspired you to pick up guitar afterwards?
I think it was my mom and someone else told me that when I was really young, whenever Elvis would come on, I would grab the broom and strum the broom. I don't really know beyond that. I mean, I have some early pictures with a toy guitar, or I was really young. I don't know. I really don't know. And it's not. And my grandmother played instruments, but I didn't know that till much, much later. And other than that, I don't. There weren't anyone else in the family around me that played that I knew of. So I really don't know. You know,
It's
I don't know
just in you, huh? It's just in you.
something. Yeah, Steve Vai the same way. His kids don't play. No one else in his family plays. Uh, yeah, it's
So
just a
interesting.
bizarre thing.
So
Yeah.
interesting. If anybody has any more questions for Larry, speak now or forever hold your peace. I'm
Hmm.
just going to quickly ask before anybody else does ask anything. Just what gauge strings do you use, mate?
I use nines on Strat scale,
Yep.
and I use tens on Gibson scale.
Uh-huh.
After 50 years of playing, my hands are. I don't need that much more resistance.
I've done the
uh,
same thing. I've dropped down. I was always a 10 to 46 or a 10 to 52 guy, but as you get older, the hands. Have you noticed a loss in tone? Because I haven't.
no, not loss in tone. No, if anything, I just like in real life, you communicate differently. So I know it doesn't seem like it, but I might play slower and hold notes longer than than I did as a young kid, as a younger kid. These days, I probably hold notes a little longer and stuff because I communicate differently. I also stop and talk differently as well.
Yeah. And how about picks? What's your choice of pick?
I use these Dava picks. Can you see that?
Yeah, yeah. I have
Yeah,
seen
I use
those.
these
Yeah.
Dava. I had another hand issue 10 years ago, and my hands would shake, and I couldn't hold on to picks. Um, and then I met Dave Story, who's from New Zealand, and he invented the Kaler tremolo and licensed it to Kaler.
All right.
Um, he's an interesting dude, very cool, very interesting. He is a true. You ever meet an artist that you're gonna go, "Oh, this is an artist."
Yeah.
He sees everything completely different, and I used to have these get-togethers once a month, kind of get-togethers, and when I lived in New Mexico, and um, I didn't know much about him, but I met him. I thought it was really cool. And the idea was everybody brings something that you have that you think most people in the group haven't seen before or played or tried. Could be a pedal, amp, guitar, anything. And Dave brought in like two of the most bizarre, like the early prototype Kaler. And I'm like, why do you have that? And then it's like, oh yeah, well I yeah, built the first Kaler and we
Wow.
invented the Kaler Jolo. But he makes these picks, Dava picks, and it's neoprene, like swimsuit material, I guess, on the
Yep.
outside,
Yeah.
and nylon on the for the pick part. And I could hold those when I was at my worst. I could hold on to this pick, and now my hands don't shake anymore. But um, yeah, I use these. I have some other ones with my logo on them because you can't put the logo on this.
Sure.
And I could almost play with those now, just like a regular pick, but I will drop those before I drop these. You know.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
amazing the difference a pick makes. I know when I went to NAM a couple of years ago, I bumped into a chap named Andy James, who was one of these
Yeah.
Instagram shredder guys, uh, and I said to him, "Oh man, your picking is one of the cleanest, most insane picking I've ever heard." And he, in his English accent, stuck his hand in his pocket and leaned over to me and said, "I've got a secret," and pulled out this pick and gave it to me. We had a signature pick coming out, and it
Hmm.
struck me just how thick it was and no flex at all. And up until that point, I was
Hmm.
using something that was a little bit flexible, and that put me on this path of looking at different picks. And now I use very chunky chicken picks, which are these big
Hmm.
things here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Will that focus? Will that focus? There it goes. And they don't chunk up and the edges don't go all funny on me like a lot of the other ones that I've tried. But the sound difference in trying
Hmm.
different picks, I never realized how much of a difference your choice of
Everything
pick
makes a
makes.
difference.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Everything makes a difference.
playing in the Queen tribute show, I was using coins like Brian May.
Uh
And
huh.
if you didn't do that, it didn't sound like Brian May. Each note that he plays has a little chirp, metal on metal.
Hmm.
Chook, chook.
Hmm.
And when you listen for it, there it is, clear as day. So,
Cool.
yeah, I'm always
Yeah.
asking people about their picks, and I have to try those ones. That you said that Java, did you say?
Dava.
Dava.
Dava. DAVA.
Okay.
DAVA. Hmm.
Uh-huh. I'm going to go and try some of those. Larry, is there
Okay.
any current projects that you're working on that you want to let people know about?
Uh, I did I participated in a Van Halen tribute album, Long Island Van Halen tribute album, and it's bands from Long Island, New York, where I used to hang out and play, um, all doing Van Halen songs, and it's for all the proceeds go to Lung Cancer Foundation. And I did a version of "Hear About It Later," but I did not do it like Van Halen does it. I
Oh,
Because it didn't make any sense. Because if you're live and you see a tribute band, that's one thing. It's like, all right, this is the experience.
yeah.
But on the record, I was like, if I do it exactly like Van Halen, then that for me as a fan and a listener, I'd be like, oh, cool, I love this song. Yeah, let me put the Van Halen version on because you want to hear the rest. So I approached it. All I can say is I approached it as how I thought the Edge from U2 would approach it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then the whole production of the song is different. It's a little bit different, but it's cool. And there's a little bit of Ed's voice speaking in it, and it's cool. I like it. I
And that
like
was a
it.
recording
Mhm.
project, you said, yeah?
Yeah, it's a record called the Long Island Van Halen tribute. I wish I had it in front of me, but if you Li Van Halen tribute album .com probably, or .org.
Okay.
.com, or you can search it on Facebook. I'm pretty sure it'll come up.
I'm gonna have to look that one up. It sounds interesting.
Okay, cool,
Cool.
cool, cool.
Larry, thank you so much for your time, mate.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. This has been fun.
Yeah,
Lots of fun.
I'd try and make it as easy as I can for everyone, mate. As I said, nothing planned. Just start off with a simple question, see where things take us.
Okay, cool.
I do want to let people know that I mentioned a couple of episodes ago that I'd rounded up some sponsors. So make sure you guys subscribe and like, because I'm going to announce in the next couple of episodes how I'm going to give away all this stuff. Thanks to Summer Cable, Chicken Picks, and ET Guitars. So if anybody has any suggestions, I'm not the best marketing guy, so I'm all ears if you've got some suggestions on how to give this away. But I do know that you need to be subscribed to the channel, so please do that. And once again, thank you to Larry Mitchell. Where's my crowd? Crowd! Yay! Thank you.
Nice.
And I'm going to hit my magic button, which ends things, my end screen button right here. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.